The American Philatelic Society is the nation's oldest and largest organization of stamp collectors. Among the many services provided to members are a monthly 100-page stamp journal, The American Philatelist, use of the largest public access philatelic library in the country, a sales division where members may buy and sell stamps among themselves with APS serving as agent, low-cost stamp insurance, expertising services, and a variety of educational offerings. For details, visit www.stamps.org. Please note, no portion of this program may be reproduced without the written permission of the Education Department, American Philatelic Society. The APS is pleased to make the audio-visual program library available to its many members, chapters, and affiliates. The library consists of over 100 titles, ranging from general interest or introductory to more specialized programs, including both U.S. and foreign. A listing is available on the APS website. Welcome to another APS multimedia program created by the United Postal Stationery Society. The Penny Postal, gone but still collectible. This slide program introduces U.S. postal cards produced during the 1873 to 1952 period when the domestic first-class postal card rate was 1 cent. Like stamps, postal cards were issued and reissued. Production efforts varied, card stock fluctuated, and press technology advanced. As a result, many collectible varieties exist today. The cards are presented in the chronological order as they were issued. The first unvalued postcard was patented by John Charlton in 1861. The patent was sold to H. L. Lippman, who marketed this private mailing card. The Lippman cards were printed in either red, blue, or green ink, but could only be mailed at letter rates. On October 1, 1869, Austria became the first nation to issue a postal card with value indicia or stamp printed on the card. 13 other European postal agencies soon followed with their own issues. In preparation for the first U.S. card, authorized in 1872, essays featuring a bust of Liberty were made in various trial inks and cardstock shades. 3 of the numerous essays illustrate the range. The U.S. Post Office advertised for postal card production bids in January of 1873. The first U.S. card was mailed on May 12, 1873, from Springfield, Massachusetts. The following day, sales were made at Washington, D.C., New York, Boston, and Hartford, Connecticut. This card, dated May 2nd, seems to predate the first day of issue. June 1st, 1873, however, was a Sunday. Perhaps a sleepy clerk changed the day in his canceller, but not the month, as the card is dated June 2nd, 1873, on the back. International usage required added adhesives to pay overseas rates. To limit potential counterfeiting, the first card stock was watermarked USPOD. Watermarks are infrequently found in reversed and inverted positions on both the first and second cards, but are scarcer on the first issue. The initial cardstock had a large 60 by 90 millimeter watermarked USPOD, 1 per card, as seen in this backlit photograph. Because of the rough and porous nature of the first cardstock, printing was halted and a second, firmer stock was substituted. It had a smaller 38 by 55 millimeter USPOD watermark. It is more common. An overseas use with an attractive Chicago blue cancel. An example of position SP45 after damage to left frame, inscription and indicia noted by arrows. Very early in the printing, 4 of 36 plates in the 4x9 setup were damaged. Termed the big hole varieties, a group of 16 cards chart the printed result. 8 cards feature the 4 plate positions on the large watermarked stock, before and after being damaged. Another 8 cards on the small watermarked stock feature the same 4 damaged positions, and finally with repairs to the metal plates. Example of position SP45 after repairs to damaged areas. Shades of cardstock and ink varied throughout the 1873 issue. In 1875, a new card design was produced, also featuring Liberty. Watermarking was eliminated as unnecessary and was never specified again. Some unused small watermarked cardstock remained and was used, creating a very scarce variety. Compare the old stock at top with the new at bottom. On some 1875 cards, there is a damaged S in the word side, as shown at the top. A repair is shown below. On other cards, there is a damaged S in the word message. Again, the damaged card is at the top with a repair shown below. Prior to 1879, international rates were determined by treaty between the two nations. In that year, following the Universal Postal Union standard rate adoption, the U.S. 2-cent international card was produced. In 1881, the domestic card design was issued with a revised inscription. The design points, or teeth, below the portrait of the 1881 card were subject to wear and are known with the teeth missing. The lower card shows an effort at re-entering the design to correct the problem. Not a true second strike, this card is known as a press jitter. Note the bottom doubling on all the printing across the card. One plate was recut with 23 teeth instead of the normal 21. The extra 2 are crowded into the design's right side on this scarce variety. Late in the printing, some plates were reattached to the print blocks with small nails, which when printed show as colorless holes in the design. Varieties include nail holes under the P of Postal, under the O of Postal, and under the D of Card. In 1885, the Liberty design was replaced with Jefferson, but the new design met with quick public disapproval. This card was known for its color varieties. Besides brown, the major printed colors are orange brown, red brown, chocolate brown, and olive. A new Jefferson design was issued in 1886. Besides light buff, the cardstock can be found in a brittle, very distinctive, dark buff color. Some of these 1886 cards are found with the center keystone at the design's top missing. In 1891, attempting to improve postal card appeal, a $500 prize led to this design. The Grant card offered the best bargain in message size, but the large 155 by 95 mm size was unpopular with business, as it did not fit easily into a standard envelope. During the Columbian Exposition, private enterprise created souvenir cards by printing colored scenes on the back of the grant card. Several varieties exist, and many cards were used overseas. Also in 1891, a smaller card was offered with the grant design, printed in blue on white cardstock. It was marketed as the ladies' card for polite correspondence. Several printing plate varieties exist on the blue grant card. The major variety is the picture hanger, which has a small loop at the top of the outer frame line and is found on only one of the 100 plate positions. In 1894, Jefferson returned as the stamp indicia, the new printer using both flatbed and rotary presses for production. In 1897, the UPU adopted a standard size for all international cards. As an emergency measure, the earlier 2-cent design was reprinted on an increased card size. These were delivered to post offices only upon request, and was replaced after only 3 months. They are difficult to find used appropriately, and particularly hard to find used to destinations other than Western Europe. A new 1-cent Jefferson design was issued in 1898. It also found use, when overprinted, in newly acquired territories of Cuba, the Philippines, and Puerto Rico. Here is an unrepaired plate damage variety, one of many too numerous to catalog. The plate damage is seen in the "of" in the United States of America. This is the result of a printer more interested in his bottom line than his quality control. Souvenir cards for the Trans-Mississippi Exposition in Omaha, Nebraska, were privately printed on this card. They are more difficult to find than the earlier Columbian Exposition cards. Printer Lewis Smith of Chicago decided to counterfeit the 1898 Jefferson card. Examples of his expert work can be identified by the lack of bottom serifs on the second T in the word states. Few examples of these rare cards exist, which can also be found used. Smith was convicted of forgery in 1900. A smaller 3x5 sized card was produced in 1898 featuring John Adams. Known as library or index cards, the idea is presumed to have originated with Melville Dewey of the New York State Library in order to fit a standard library index file drawer. This 1898 2-cent international card met new requirements for color. It can also be found overprinted for use in Cuba and the Philippines. Many of the earlier 2-cent plates were reused by having the frame lines removed. Following the assassination of President McKinley in 1901, a new design was produced featuring a full-face portrait. After printing over 1.5 million cards, the Post Office Department and Mrs. McKinley decided they were poorly printed and unattractive. The entire order was destroyed, save for a block of 500 cards somehow purchased and imprinted by the New York firm of Booth, Daly & Ivins. The firm, which collected garbage, used the cards to report their dumping at sea actions to the Home Office, hence the oft-used term garbage card. A collector saw one of the full-face cards and, realizing their rarity, obtained 149 unused and 312 used cards. A large number of these were later destroyed in a fire, making this card the second rarest U.S. postal card. This is the reverse side, showing the reporting form. The withdrawn full-face card was immediately replaced in 1902, modified with a profile portrait of McKinley. The card was also overprinted for use in the Philippines. In 1907, a new McKinley design was issued that was less elaborate in its overall design. The 1907 card with a double bottom line in the frame of the stamp exists in several varieties. It may have been created by a re-entry of the die. The Postal Service reissued the 1907 card in 1908 with a printed dividing line, permitting the left third of the card's front to be used for messages. In 1910, printing of postal cards transferred from private firms to the government printing office, known as the public printer. The initial product again featured McKinley, printed in blue ink on an unusual bluish tinted cardstock. A rejected plate pressed into service created the very scarce pointed arcs in the inscription frame lines variety. 3 months later, in April 1910, the blue McKinley was redesigned with the shaded background removed and reissued. The Government Printing Office issued a new library card in 1911 featuring Lincoln. Also in 1911, the McKinley design was reprinted in a red color. A heavier cardstock, for use exclusively on rotary presses, was changed to a cream and later a buff color, which remained standard for 50 years. 1911 also saw the issuance of a new 2-cent international card with a portrait of Grant. 2 types of this card exist, determined by the distance between the indicia and the inscription. This card has a number of minor printing varieties. On this library card issue of 1913, the color was changed to green, reflecting the color standardization of U.S. 1-cent postage. The newly designed 1-cent green Jefferson became the basic card in 1914. With extended longevity, it was used nearly 37 years, with over 58 billion printed, until the rate changed to 2 cents in 1952. Although seemingly identical through the years, 3 major press differences can be determined, including vertical rotary press printings from 1914 to 1924, flat plate press printings in 1925, and horizontal rotary press printings from 1926 to 1951. Many cardstock colors and ink shades exist. 3 distinct overprints were used for the Canal Zone. In 1916, due to World War I, normal cardstocks were depleted and a highly porous, grayish-colored emergency cardstock was pressed into service to meet demand. Although the printing ink was adjusted to compensate, the indicia's detail was erased as shown at left, and production was stopped after 1 week. A new die was recut to produce a legible likeness as seen in the hair and coat lines at right. Printing was resumed and continued for several more weeks until regular cardstock was obtained. Both printings on emergency gray stock are very scarce. A new library card was issued in 1917. At least 3 distinct types of indicia are identifiable, determined by the forelock hairs and collar. With the U.S. entry into World War I, a 1-cent tax was levied on all domestic postal matter. In 1917, a 2-cent Jefferson card was issued in red, printed from 2 different printing dies. This card, with Jefferson's hair queue dropping sharply down in back, is known as die 1. In comparison to die 1 on the left, die 2 on the right has Jefferson's hair queue extending toward the D in card. At the end of the war, the tax was removed and the postal card rate returned to 1 cent. A decision was made in 1920 to revalue the significant 160 million remaining 2-cent Jefferson cards. An experimental revalue overprint in a single-line format was found unsatisfactory. Of the rarest of the revalued cards, it is estimated that no more than 3,000 of these survive. Most common and a challenging specialty are the 1-cent overprints in a 2-line configuration. Revalue slugs for canceling machines were distributed to 46 large post offices for revaluing the individual cards on hand and in their general area. It was discovered soon after by collectors that each of the 46 slugs was different. Overprinted on both Die 1 and Die 2 cards, collecting possibilities include double, tripled, and inverted revalues, and almost any manner in which they could be fed through the canceller. 4 of the 1911 2-cent International Grant cards are known mistakenly revalued in Los Angeles, California. Although used, they are the rarest of all U.S. postal cards. Sharp, dark, 2-line overprints were also printed on full sheets of both 2-cent Die 1 and Die 2 cards by letterpress in Washington, D.C. and in San Francisco. In 1926, the international rate was raised to 3 cents. A new 3-cent McKinley card was produced, and because it was printed infrequently and in low quantities, several shades of ink and card stock exist. The domestic postal card rate was permanently raised to 2 cents, effective January 1, 1952. A new card featuring Benjamin Franklin, the country's first Postmaster General, was issued late in 1951 in preparation for the change. It was the last card overprinted for use in the Canal Zone. Individual 1-cent Jefferson and 1-cent Lincoln card remainders were revalued by a type of Pitney Bowes Incorporated imprinting machine, known as a tickometer. 38 machines were distributed to post offices. However, inexact instructions allowed different placements of the overprints. Full sheets of 1-cent Jefferson and Lincoln cards were also revalued at the government printing office by letterpress. 4 overprint varieties exist. Lastly, to end the penny postal, a new 2-cent Lincoln Library card was issued in 1952. In one of the more unique events in Post Office Department history, the plates had actually been prepared for the World War I war tax period. Due to little demand at that time, they laid unused until some 34 years later. In closing, we urge you to explore this challenging segment of philately, which branches into postal history, errors, freaks, and oddities, plate and cancel studies, and topical collecting. If you would be interested in additional information on postal cards, please contact the United Postal Stationery Society. A comprehensive United States postal card catalog is published and updated by the Society and is available for purchase at www.upss.org. The APS welcomes your comments on this presentation and your ideas on topics for future slide programs. If you know of an outstanding collection, suitable topic, or existing program of another society that would make an interesting slide program, please contact us. Do so also if you would like more information about other available slide programs. Contact us at the APS website, www.stamps.org. Thank you.